Hey guys, how are you? This is Nina Perez, and this is Straight Talk, no sugar added. I am so glad to be here. You know, this show is created to discuss life topics, to grow, challenge, and transform your thinking. And today I have Shirley Dalton here with me, and I probably said that wrong. She is the creator of the Blueprint for Business Freedom and a leading authority on proven profitable processes. So Shirley is on a mission to help even more business owners to reclaim their freedom and create their ideal business lifestyle. And I love that. And that's something I think, Shirley, that people are looking for now, right? Especially with like everything that happened during COVID and all of this stuff. People are looking at business totally different now. Now it's about, how do I get my freedom? How do I work from home? How do I stay happy? Right. So Shirley, before we get into all that great stuff, I love to start the show by introducing you, but also having you tell us a little bit more about yourself. So who is Shirley?
Thanks,
Little
Nina.
question, little tiny question.
Yeah, like how long have you got?
Right.
Yeah, I've been on the planet a few years now, so we've had lots of experiences, and I'm really grateful to be here, and I just love your energy. So I'm really excited to have our conversation today. I grew up an only child of parents that owned a taxi. And so they worked hard. You know, mum worked the morning shift and dad worked the evening shift. So we had money, but we didn't have time. And, you know, growing up and as I've gone through the different jobs and things that I've had before starting my own business, it was always in the back of my mind that there must be a way that business owners can have a business and a life. And so, you know, I'm really passionate about that, and really helping also people to have good relationships by using communication skills and by understanding who they are and understanding other people. And most of my life has been spent doing that. You know, just I love personal development and growth. We've traveled all over the world, studied with the greats, and you know, and it's my pleasure to share what I know and help other people.
That's great. And, you know, you touched on a couple of things there because, I think when people think business, they're thinking about the processes, right? Like all the processes of business. But what it sounds like to me of what you're talking about is you're also getting into the person itself, right? Because I think that's what drives the business. And like even you probably encounter this with your clients as well. Like when you first start to coach them, it's all about just these business processes that they want to, right? That they want to get through. And then you're like, but what do you really want? Like, like what is really going on here? And then we start to uncover all of this stuff, right? So that's the fun part. So so you've been doing this for a while. Like were you always an entrepreneur, or were you into business before and became one? How did that come about?
Well, my parents, as I said, owned a taxi, and my father was always happy for me to take on the family business, but it wasn't a business I wanted to take on.
Right.
and and he actually said to me, you know, because they work so hard, he said, get a good job in the government, love. And so I took my father's advice, and I did get a good job in the government, and they made me go on at school too. I could have gotten the same job 2 years earlier had I left school, but no, I had to get my education because neither of them had an education. So there was, you know, was this thing.
Wow, that was important.
And,
yeah.
and I started out as a clerk typist in the motor registry, which is where you go, you know, for your licenses and your car registration and that. And I lasted 7 years there, and and there was no room for promotion or anything, you know, to get anywhere. You just had to wait till the most senior person died or left or something like that. And but I was bored to tears, Nina. You know, I didn't know until I was 40 that I actually was smart. You know, I just thought everybody was the same as me. And, you know, and I think, oh, my goodness. And I'd always wanted to be a teacher, a school teacher doing home economics, which was cooking and sewing. And when I left school, there were no places at universities for that. They had plenty of those teachers. So again, that was another reason to get the good government job. And eventually at age 24, I went back and I did my degree in teaching, and I lasted 6 months in the high school. And I thought, oh my God, I love teaching and I love training people, but working in the school system, it just didn't work for me, you know.
Right.
one time there was a lady and she said, I'm in a bad mood. I think I'm going to go and catch some kids smoking. And I said, oh, for God's sake, sit down and have a cup of tea. Like, really?
Right.
And I thought, I can't do this for the rest of my
Right.
life. So,
At least you found out 6 months in, right? Instead of 6 years in, which happens to a lot of people. Like, it's funny, Shirley, like what you said is funny and not, right? About, you were there 7 years and you had to wait for somebody to die or retire. And I think that happens a lot, right? Like sometimes you get into a job and you're there and you're not realizing 7 years goes by like this, right?
yes.
Right? And then you're just like, what the frig am I doing here? So, what was that transition for you though? Like, were you always into personal development and something triggered? Or
Mm.
what was that? What was that moment? Do you remember it?
Yeah, I remember one time I'd had a boyfriend from age 15 to 20, and we broke up, and it was my choice to break up because I wanted to see the world and do things, but I couldn't quite get over him. So I went to this hypnotherapist, much to my mum's like, and, mumbo jumbo, silly stuff.
Right.
And I remember her taking me down the levels, and she said, I want you to see his face there. And then she said, and see the attachment, and then cut that attachment and let him go. And I'm like, no.
Right.
and anyway, eventually I did let it go, and I was just so amazed at what could be done, when you understand the mind and
Yeah.
how it works. And I've always been an avid learner. I'm so curious about everything. So I just, talk about one of the course junkies. I just will sign up for lots of things. In fact, my husband and I counted it up, and we spent over $500,000 in personal development, travel and
Wow.
stuff. And
Wow.
yeah, that was interesting when I met my husband, and I had a list. I knew I had to have a list of all these things that I wanted, and he ticked most of these things on the list. But one
Oh,
thing that
good.
I hadn't factored on was that I was off doing astrology and numerology, and I came home from that one evening. We'd only just started, and his bottom lip's out, and I said, "What's the matter?" And he said, "I want to come too." And I went, "Oh, okay." I wasn't expecting that. And so together we've done heaps of different stuff
Wow.
together, and it's just been great. He's my best friend, and we've traveled all over the world. We don't have children, so we have that freedom, which is fantastic.
Yeah. You've been married long or?
Next week it'll be 32 years.
Oh, wow. That's good. You still like him. That's
Yeah.
great. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Oh, that's good, right? Because I mean, at least you're on the right path, right? Like when you have two people that are on two different things, like I'm into personal development too. I love it very much, right? And but my husband not so much, but he's also not against it. So
Mhm.
it's been a peaceful place. But I know people who are in personal development and the spouse is completely not. That causes a lot of issues, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does. And,
yeah,
one of three things happen. They call that cognitive dissonance. And you've either got to get the spouse on board, or you've got to go on board with your spouse, or sometimes
right.
the relationship breaks. It's very
Yeah,
difficult when you haven't got that. And in fact, when we bought the motorhome to go travelling around Australia, when we went in there, the guy said, "Well, you've got two things going for you." And we said, "Oh, yeah, what's that?" And he said, "Well, one is that you're both young." Because sadly not everybody makes it. They'll order them because we had to wait 10 months for it. And he said, and
mm,
sadly they won't come to pick it up. And he said the other thing is that you both want to go. He said often people will come in and one wants to go and one's like that.
right.
So yeah, so that was
That's so good. That is really good, and that's a real blessing to be able to have your spouse after that many years and still have that connection, because that's very strong, right? And when you're in personal development, you start to really work on what you're thinking about, how you're thinking about things, and it also teaches you how to treat others, right? It gives you like a sense of empathy and sympathy towards others, right? Even though people, spouses can still be annoying, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
yeah. You learn how to fight clean.
Right. Yes. Right. That's so funny. So tell me a little bit about that transition for you. So you went in, was it after teaching that you started doing, teaching others or having your own business, or how did that work out for you?
Oh, I had, the young people these days, they have a job for about 2 years and then they move on and they're always looking for something. Well, 30 years ago, that was me. And
Right.
I would do a job for about 2 years ago. Yeah, okay, I've done this now, tick it off, what's next? And so I had
Right.
quite a lot, after the motor registry, I had quite a lot of jobs, and after my university degree with teaching. And then we moved to another state, and we were living up there, and my mother, she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer for quite a number of years, and then my uncle died, and my father rang up one night, so we were about 10 hours away, and Dad said, oh, this was on a Friday night, and he said, oh, I just want to tell you, he said, your mum's in hospital. And I went, what? He said, yeah, she was cleaning your uncle's house, and her arm all swelled up and stuff. And I
Wow.
said, oh, gee, when did she go into hospital? And he went, oh, yesterday. And I hit the roof. And this is about 9 o'clock at night. And I got off the phone and I said to Ross, get dressed and packed. We're going to Newcastle. He said, what, now? And I said, yes, now. And so we drove all night, and we got down there, and Mum never cried, and of course we went into the hospital, and she was howling, and when we turned up at Dad's house, he was like howling. And anyway, we only had the weekend because we had to go back for work, and on the way back I was howling, I cried all the way home, and I said to Ross, I can't do this. I said, I don't want to be living here and get a phone call that something's happened to them. So that was the catalyst. So then we decided we'd pack up. We didn't sell the house at that time. We just rented it out, and we moved back. We actually moved in with Mum and Dad for a couple of months until we got sorted. And I got this job with Kip McGrath Education Centres, which is now a worldwide tutoring organisation for children. And there was an ad there that said National Franchise Manager, and it was like for teaching children how to read and write and do mathematics, English and spelling, and had to be good with people and had to be organised. And I thought, oh, well, I don't know anything about franchising. I don't know anything about tutoring, but I've got the others. And anyway, I got the job, and that was a real transformation for me. Yeah, Kip and his wife, Dagnia, she was from Latvia. They were just fantastic role models for business, because up until then I'd always been in the government, good government job.
Right.
And now I was in private enterprise. And because I'd also done systems, you were talking before about businesses and systems. Well, in the government, everything's run by a system.
Right.
And in one of my boredom times, I'd gone on relief staff, so I could go into any motor registry throughout the state and do the job. Well, when I got into private enterprise, it was like, what do you mean there's no relief staff? What do you mean the work will be here when I get back? What do you mean there's no systems?
Right.
And so I just started to improve things just to make my life easier. And then we floated on the stock exchange, and while I was there, we grew from 200 odd franchises around Australia to over 600 worldwide.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
yeah, and I love the private enterprise, because you could make a decision. Like in the government, I remember Kip saying to me one time, he called me in. He said, come into my office, and I've walked in, and he said, I want you to lose that piece of paper. And I said, what piece of paper? I haven't got a piece of paper. And he said, the one you cover your with. He said, you're not in the government now. He said, make a decision and stick by it. I went, okay. And I love that, because, in the government, nobody wants to make a decision, and it's all by committee. Whereas here,
right, all the chiefs, right? Yes. That's amazing. So when you went into that enterprise, is that was that more like you being a franchisee? Like, were you an owner of a franchise? Is that what you were doing? You were just working with them, with the company?
Yeah, so I started out as the national franchise manager, so looking after. So Kip and his son Storm would be responsible for sales and for bringing in the franchisees, and Doug was responsible for the curriculum. And so my job was they'd bring them in, and then as the franchise manager, it was my job to look after them. And
Okay.
and again, the systems thing came in because they complained one time. We used to send out the worksheets for the children, and they'd put their orders in, and they'd complain, you people, you send it to the wrong place. And I said, how come? And I went downstairs to the printing guy and I said, how come, people are complaining? And he said, because they put a post office box in instead of their address. And I said, well, so what? And he said, well, the courier company won't send it to a post office box. I said, oh. So I just asked them, where do you want the parcel sent, to your home address or the centre address? And little things like that we just fixed. And and we sort of really improved the efficiency of the business, and I just loved it. And then I was also by default coaching them, even though I'd done a lot of personal development work, and I'd been a Lifeline telephone counsellor, and I'd learned Thomas Gordon's effectiveness training and active listening.
Yeah.
And so they'd ring me up and I'd just listen and just coach them. And anyway, over the period, I went from national franchise manager to chief operating officer. And then a girlfriend of mine who's a HR lawyer was worried about getting an audit one time. She said, would you come and document my procedures? And I said, sure. And in the process of that, I'd be asking, how come you do this? How come you do that? And then we would just change a few things. And she ended up with an extra day a month in extra time.
Right.
And Neena, I got a taste for this, and
I was going to say.
It's like,
So it actually turned out to be a really good government paying job, right? Because everything you learned kept serving you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
It was the systems that I did that then I was, and I'm naturally bent for systems as well. I don't want to follow them. I'll put them in place, but I
Follow them. That's great. That's great. That's so funny.
yeah. And
Right.
then from there, my husband would say to me, gee whiz, look at you skipping home after I do this work. And then, and I get this now. And at the time I asked for part-time work, and within about 3 weeks I had no time work. And so I'd gone from a 6-figure salary chief operating officer to being in business. And it was like,
Right.
whoa. So we had no capital, no plan, no nothing. And that was 16 odd years ago. And
Wow. That's
yeah.
great. But it's fantastic, isn't it? I bet you're really enjoying what you're doing. And I do want to talk to you about that. So as you transitioned out of that and started your own business, right? What is it exactly that you do with your clients that come to you?
Yeah, well, I'll start by saying what I started doing and how it's evolved, because it's really interesting. I would start by doing their systems, and when we say that, people would think, "Oh, you're an IT specialist." Absolutely not.
Right.
What I did was facilitate, and so over the time, I actually developed what I call my 5 steps, and we would actually map their processes, and out of that, when you map the processes, you find out what happens by whom, as in the role, when, and then, what happens by whom and when, and then that actually gives you the table of contents for all of the procedures, because you need to know how to do the what. And then when you look at that and you color code it, you can actually then see the organisation chart, but you're doing it in terms of roles. It's not Neena's job or Shirley's job, it's the salesperson's job, the receptionist's job. And then from there, now we've got that clear, we can do the key performance indicators, behaviour indicators, or the job description. So then we know what we need to recruit for, and we can write that up. So I was doing that with a lot of businesses, and I learned to go to all of the chamber networking events and things, and they used to torment me and say I'd go to the opening of an envelope, and I would. And anyway, then I found that when I'd finished a project and I would walk away, that the systems would fall over, and I'd be like scratching my head, like, how come?
Yeah.
And then I found that the owners didn't know how to lead and manage their people or hold them accountable. So then it was just a case, I used to just can be quite assertive, and okay, you come with me. And then I started coaching them, and that was one-on-one. And then I did more leadership work and development for myself. And then I started offering small, I still keep them small, up to 12 people in leadership experiences.
That's great.
And it is an experience, it's based on academic, but there's lots of activities and things, and people really get and then again, furthered my development and learned more about the brain and the mindset, the transformational. So now I'm qualified with David Bayer as a transformational mindset facilitator, and we start looking at beliefs and things. And then I sort of put all of this together in what I call the blueprint for business freedom. And so it's people, process, and possibility, which is your mindset.
I love it.
And under these all break out into three areas. So under the people side, you've got to know yourself, you've got to know others, and then you've got to be able to have your communication skills and use them. And then under the process side of things, it's identifying your operations, so smooth operations, role clarity, and then how to document procedures. Because when you do procedures, people want to know what they have to do and how. And so the action to take. So you've got to start those with a verb, a doing word, none of this flowery long sentences. It's like think, think, think.
I know. Yes. Yeah, that's amazing. And so the last P is?
The last piece is possibility. Which is your mindset. So it's about becoming clear about what it is that you want, and then looking at techniques to manifest and create that, and also looking at clearing your obstacles. So understanding your limiting beliefs and things that are getting in your way. And so coming back to what you were saying before, the business owners come in and they don't know any better. So they'll come in as what we call the decoration on the door. My business isn't working. I need systems. And go, you do. And then let's just have a look at this. And, and then they get to know themselves. So, it's a big sort of eye-opener. And in answer to your question, what do I do? That's my sweet spot. I focus on people, process, and possibility. And people will call me a business coach, but I really don't get into the marketing or the finances. They're not my area. It's just those three. Yeah.
So, and I think that what you're doing is business, right? I mean, you are dealing with the people behind, the business. And I think you're right. Because I coach a lot of business people too, but I'm not a business coach, and it's funny because and I'm going to speak for myself. I also thought that, when I see like, oh, I'm a business coach, I'm like, oh, okay. So they're teaching you processes and systems and stuff like that. But you're right. I think that what you're doing is important because you're actually dealing with a person as well. They're limiting beneath their mindsets, because a lot of times the business is not running well, not because of the employee. Right? It's usually not the employee all the time, right? So it's funny, right? Because in leadership, because I'm a director as well, and in leadership and stuff, you start to. I'm glad. I'll put it this way: I am glad that I am in personal development. Because it helps me notice my flaws, my errors, the fact that, it's really not them all the time. Maybe it's me, that kind of thing. And it also helps you kind of counsel and coach your team through things too, right? So that's great that you're doing that. Are you dealing with the limiting beliefs and all of that with the leadership team mainly, or are you doing it like the whole, the whole team, the employees and everybody? How does that work when you do it?
Yeah, it depends on the particular client. Often I will start with the business owner, and then they'll get so much out of it that then they'll start sending their managers along to our leadership experience, and then they're all talking the same language. We talk about living above and below the line, those sorts of things. So, and they can pull each other up on it then because they understand it.
Right. That must be very helpful, because I mean, if they're willing to put themselves through that, then they really do care about the company, and then they really do care about their team, because a lot of times the ego and arrogance can be an issue, but if they're willing to put themselves to the point where and I want to preface this to all of the people that are listening, understand that when you show that you're human in a leadership role, you are more likely to get people that will follow your lead when they realize that you are a human being and that you don't have to be so arrogant and have this ego. So I think that the work you're doing, Shirley, is like super important, right? So we talked a little bit too about the change. How are you finding the changes in business dynamics now? Because things are different, pre-COVID, right? How are you finding that now, navigating that with businesses?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. When COVID first hit in Australia, we were traveling and we were in Tasmania and we were meant to go back to New South Wales to run a leadership experience. And all of a sudden we were in lockdown and I thought, oh, crikey, there goes half of my revenue. And we ended up, we had to do the leadership experience on the computer, through
Right.
Zoom. And that was interesting, doing my best to give people the experiences and the activities when you've got it. And we had all of this stuff we had to post to them, bits and pieces for the activities. Now I'm finding that a lot of people are actually happy to work from home, and a lot of people are saying, oh, do I have to actually get dressed, put my makeup on, spend another hour getting ready for work, traveling to work?
True. Yep.
Yeah. And also with a lot of our meetings, if we're doing process work with people, I like to record it. So if I'm in a face-to-face meeting, I used to take a recorder so that I could get it. Now, if it's on Zoom, we can draw on the whiteboard and, I think you can still connect. And I'm finding too that a lot of people now, we've got such a mobile population at the moment. People are saying, you know what, I don't want to live in this city anymore. I'm going out here. As long as I've got the internet and the phone, I can have my lifestyle. I don't have to go where the jobs used to be, because I can do the work from wherever now. And
are you finding it like some of the leadership that you're working with now, are you finding it easier to work with them when it comes to Zoom? Like, does it feel less threatening, or do you feel like that's still something that should be done more face to face? How do you feel about that with the leadership particularly?
Yeah, it depends. One of the clients that I work closely with, we would normally Zoom and record it. And he's been away on holidays and a vacation, and and a couple of issues have popped up. And I said, I'd like to meet with you face to face. And he went, ooh, this is, on the text message. And he said, ooh, that must be a big ticket item. And I went, yes, it is.
Right.
So,
Oh, that's good. Yeah. So that's good though. I'm glad that you're finding that it is a good way to navigate. And once you put it that way, it really is, isn't it? You get to record the session. You get to break down the session afterwards to see where it is you can work with them next time. I love that. And the fact that you can use the whiteboard. I'm finding that too with my clients, because I used to love to like sit, with my client, meet them for coffee and sit and talk. But now I'm reaching clients all over the place, so I have clients everywhere and I'm just like, this is so interesting. And I don't think a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it can be if you're going to be sitting at home all day and have zero social life, like that can be hard. But I think what we're doing right now is this is the future. This is where we are. Right.
yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you have such a warm energy that it comes through the computer anyway. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, very, very bright and vivacious. So, yeah.
I'll take it, Shirley. I'll take it.
Yeah. You take it.
Shirley, I really love the way your mind works, and I love this conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time from Australia to be on here with me. So what I'd like to do before I let you go, because I know that I have lots of different people that listen to my show, and business owners in particular, because I deal with a lot of high achieving women is really what I work with. But I would really love for you to leave us your information, because somebody might be hearing this and want to reach out to you. So if you can give us like your website or your social media handles, anywhere we can like support and contact you with somebody. How would we
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah. Well, on our website, it's no www, it's https, the
Okay.
dots and then the things. And if you just Google shirleydalton.com,
Okay.
and on there we have what we call an aha session. So people can book in there, and that's just a 30-minute session. And I strictly no
I love
selling
that.
on that. Yeah, it's my goal there is to help you get an aha in that 30 minutes. And then if you want to talk about work later, that's another conversation. And it's and I'm true to that as well. And there's information there. I do a weekly thought, and we put that up. Yeah, I'm so proud of that. I haven't missed a week in 11 years of just writing
Oh,
my weekly thoughts.
wow. In 11
Yeah.
years? All right, Shirley, you're
Yep.
better than I. I'm gonna yield. I yield. That's fantastic. Where do you do that? Is it on the website or do you have a particular place you do those?
Well, people can sign up to receive them via email, and they come out every Friday morning or Aussie time. Or I also put them on the website, so they're under I think that's called Weekly Thoughts on the website,
Okay.
or like a blog. And yeah, and it's really the idea is to inspire, educate, and support you to be, do, have, and feel what
Amazing.
you want. And that's really my mission in life, is to help you get whatever it is that you want. And we have an online membership as well for leading yourself and
Great.
leading others, which takes in all of the, people, process and possibilities. And twice a month I'm on there to answer questions, and we're always putting up new content.
Oh,
Or of
wow,
course,
that's great.
yeah.
So that's great, Shirley, because that's a very active community. That's a good thing, right? When you're out there and you can be and they know, oh, wait, Shirley's coming on. This is the week Shirley's coming on. That's really, really important to be engaging and to like have a community that's active because we really aren't in each other's faces anymore. So this is like super important. That's great. That's really smart. Very smart woman. Very smart. But Shirley, you're amazing and your energy is it's really great. Thank you so much for being on here with me. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Nina. I appreciate you too.
Thank you. And guys, thank you so much for spending this time with me. Don't forget to contact Shirley, especially if you have like a business or something where you really feel like you need to get some things in place. I'm going to make sure that I put all of her information below. That way you can click and follow and share and contact her, all of that great stuff. I'm definitely going to go on there to go get those weekly, what did you call them? Weekly what?
Weekly thoughts.
Weekly thoughts. I'm going to go on there and get those weekly thoughts so I can get myself moving forward too. So guys, thank you so much for being here. This is Neena Perez. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. You know all the stuff already. Talk to you soon. Until next time.
This broadcast is brought to you by Wincheck Studios. We are an all-in-one educational platform for podcasters that revolutionizes how hosts leverage content to increase engagement with listeners, downloads, and income. We come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how you can interact directly with our hosts, access exclusive live content with offers you can't get anywhere else from our official partners, join our purpose-driven community by visiting www.winject.com. If you're ready to build a career doing what you love, then we're ready to see you there.